Woman was humiliated at graduation, but didn't expect he was watching. Julie Anderson's life had always been a patchwork of sacrifices. On that graduation night, while trying to balance her young son on her lap and adjust the only dress she owned and mended and out of fashion, she had no idea her world was about to change. The looks of contempt and malicious whispers surrounding her in the University of Michigan auditorium were like invisible arrows, but there was one pair of eyes observing her with admiration. Robert Nelson, a successful businessman and university patron, was sitting in the first row when he noticed the woman in the simple dress being discreetly humiliated by the elegant guests. While the giggles grew around her, Robert saw something others couldn't see: impressive dignity, a determined look of someone who had faced the world with her own hands, and that touched him deeply. "Mom, everyone's looking at us," whispered Lucas, her 6-year-old son, clinging to Julie's neck. "Don't worry, sweetheart. They're just admiring how handsome you look," she replied with a forced smile, adjusting the bow tie she had sewn from scraps for her son. Julie was looking for a place to sit, but all seats seemed suddenly occupied when she approached. Her heart raced. She was there to see her best friend, Fiona, receive her education degree, a dream Julie herself had postponed when she became pregnant at 19. "There's room here," said a deep, gentle voice. She looked up and found a man in an impeccable suit, indicating the seat beside him. For a moment she hesitated, suspicious of the unexpected kindness. "Thank you, but I don't want to bother," she replied, noticing how he stood out from the crowd with his serious posture and profound gaze. "It's no bother at all, and it looks like your little warrior there is tired," said Robert, smiling at Lucas, who was already yawning. Reluctantly, Julie accepted the seat. She could feel even more intense stares now. Some university directors seemed shocked to see Robert Nelson, the institution's most important benefactor, sitting next to a woman who clearly didn't belong to that social circle. "Do you know someone graduating today?" he asked, trying to break the ice. "My friend Fiona Sanders. We worked together at the campus diner and she made it. I'm still trying," Julie responded, unsure why she was sharing this with a stranger. "What's your degree in?" Robert asked, genuinely interested. "I don't have my degree yet. I had to put my English literature studies on hold when he was born," she indicated Lucas with an affectionate look. "But I went back 2 years ago, not much longer now." The conversation was interrupted when Claudia Mercer, Julie's former classmate and now a social media influencer with thousands of followers, approached with a fake smile. "Julie, it's been so long. I didn't know you'd be here," she exclaimed, with false excitement, while sliding her gaze over Julie's simple dress. "And this is your son? How he's grown? And how peculiar his bow tie is." Julie felt her face burn, recognizing the malicious tone disguised as sympathy. Before she could respond, she felt Lucas's hand tighten on hers. "It's made from scraps, left over from Grandma's dress," replied the boy with innocent pride. "My mom made it." "How creative," replied Claudia with an icy smile, before turning to Robert with a different demeanor. "Mr. Nelson, I didn't expect to see you here. I'm a great admirer of your work. Actually, my channel has a segment on social entrepreneurship, and I'd love to interview you." Robert observed the change in the woman's behavior and felt a pang of disgust. "Perhaps another time," he replied politely but firmly. "I'm accompanying Ms. Anderson and her son at the moment." Claudia's face contorted in surprise and confusion before she walked away, but not without giving Julie an incredulous look. "You didn't have to do that," murmured Julie, embarrassed. "I don't like fakeness," Robert answered simply. The ceremony began and Lucas fell asleep on his mother's lap. Julie alternated between paying attention to the graduation and discreetly observing the man beside her. There was something familiar about him that she couldn't identify. When they finally called Fiona, Julie applauded enthusiastically, waking Lucas, who drowsily joined the applause. Robert smiled, seeing the genuine joy in her eyes. At the end of the ceremony, as everyone headed to the reception, Julie knew it was time to leave. This wasn't her world. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Nelson, and thank you for your kindness," she said, adjusting Lucas, who had fallen back, asleep on her shoulder. "The pleasure was mine, and please call me Robert." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "May I accompany you home? It's late already." "That's not necessary. We'll take the bus. It's our ritual after special days," she smiled. And for the first time, Robert saw a genuine smile, not the forced one from earlier in the evening. "At least let me help with the little one to the bus stop," he insisted. As they walked out of campus, Claudia didn't miss the opportunity to discreetly film the unusual scene: businessman Robert Nelson carrying Julie's sleeping son, the woman in the mended dress. Julie didn't notice, but that video would change her life in the coming hours. At the bus stop, Robert seemed reluctant to say goodbye. "Julie, excuse my boldness, but I'd like to talk more with you about your studies, about how I can help." He seemed genuinely interested, but Julie was accustomed to men with false intentions. "Look, I appreciate your kindness, but I don't need charity," she responded defensively. "It's not charity," he answered calmly. "Actually, I'm looking for someone for a project at my foundation, someone who understands the value of education and perseverance." The bus approached before Julie could respond. She climbed the steps with Lucas still asleep in her arms. "Think about it," said Robert, handing her a card before the doors closed. During the ride home, while Lucas slept against the bus window, Julie looked at the card. "Robert Nelson, New Paths Foundation." Below, a handwritten phone number. She put the card in her purse, certain she would never call. What Julie didn't know was that at that exact moment, Claudia was posting the video on her social media with the caption, "Has millionaire Robert Nelson found his suburban Cinderella? Project Housing Princess, Graduation Reception." The video, recorded with a mocking tone, showed Julie and her simple dress, highlighting the men's and how the elegant audience looked at her. But it also captured, unintentionally, the dignity with which Julie carried her son and Robert's unexpected kindness. In a few hours, the internet would take sides, in a way Claudia never expected. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, Julie woke up to her phone ringing insistently. It was Fiona, her voice mixing panic and anger. "Jules, have you seen what that snake Claudia did?" she asked without even saying good morning. "What are you talking about, Fee?" replied Julie sleepily, checking the time. She needed to hurry to drop Lucas at school before her shift at the diner. She posted a video of you and Lucas at graduation with those horrible captions of hers, but Jules, it's turned into an avalanche. The video has almost 1 million views, and the entire internet is against her. Julie felt her blood freeze. With trembling hands, she accessed the social network and easily found the video. Tears came when she read Claudia's malicious comments, but she soon realized that most responses were defending her and criticizing the influencer. How disgusting to mock a working mother. Who's the real princess here? The warrior mum or the clueless princess? Robert Nelson showing he's a true gentleman. With her heart racing, Julie spent the day working at the university diner while the video continued to spread. Some customers recognized her and showed support, but this only increased her embarrassment. She never asked to be the center of attention. At the end of her shift picking up Lucas at the neighborhood community school, the principal called her for a conversation. "Julie, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a TV reporter wanting to do a story about you," said Mrs. Martin, the 60-year-old principal who had known Julie since childhood. "What?" Julie felt the ground disappear beneath her. "It's about this video that's been circulating. They came here asking about you." Julie left the school through the back door, holding Lucas's hand and trying to understand how her life had turned upside down in less than 24 hours. That's when she noticed a black car parked across the street. Robert Nelson got out of the vehicle and walked toward her. He was dressed more casually now, jeans and a button-down shirt, but still exuded that aura of confidence Julie had noticed the night before. "I'm sorry for showing up like this," he began, "but after that video I thought you might need help." "I didn't ask to become a meme," she replied, her voice breaking. "I just wanted to watch my friend graduate in peace." "I know," he responded kindly, "and that's why I'm here. My legal team is already working to have the video removed for privacy violation, but I also wanted to say that the proposal I mentioned last night still stands. In fact, now more than ever." "What proposal?" asked Lucas curiously, looking at the man he recognized from the previous night. Robert knelt down to the boy's level. "I'm inviting your mum to work on a very special project at my foundation. A project to help student mothers like her." Julie looked at Robert suspiciously. "Why me? There are thousands of more qualified people." "Because you're exactly what this project needs. Someone who knows the challenges firsthand." He paused. "And maybe you don't remember, but we've met before." Julie frowned, confused. 5 years ago, I was selling bottled water at Lakeshore Beach in Chicago. You were there with your little boy and offered me a sandwich when you realized I hadn't. Stopped for lunch all day." The memory suddenly returned. An exhausted young vendor, the scorching sun, baby Lucas sleeping under the shade of a borrowed beach umbrella, she sharing her modest lunch with a stranger. "That was you?" she asked. Incredulous. "That sandwich and your kindness meant a lot that day. Perhaps more than you imagine," he smiled. "I was almost ready to give up on everything." Julie felt something change inside her. It was a hard story to believe, but at the same time, it explained that feeling of familiarity. "Look, I need to think. All this is happening too fast." "I completely understand," replied Robert, "but at least let me help with this video situation. And when you're ready, my invitation still stands." That night, while Lucas slept, Julie researched Robert Nelson and was surprised. He really did have a story of overcoming adversity. The son of immigrants from the Midwest, raised in a Chicago suburb, he started selling water at the beach and today led a business group focused on educational technology. His foundation helped young people and single mothers complete their education. Maybe, Julie thought, it would be worth at least hearing what he had to say. In the following days, the digital storm continued. Claudia had removed the video, but it was too late. The internet had chosen its side, and Julie found herself transformed into a symbol of maternal resilience against social bullying. After a week of reflection, Julie finally called the number on the card. 2 days later, she was at the New Paths Foundation headquarters, impressed by the welcoming simplicity of the place, so different from what she imagined for a millionaire's foundation. "Our Educating Mothers project needs someone to coordinate a support program for women who, like you, balance motherhood, work and studies," explained Robert, while showing her the facilities. "The salary is competitive with the market, and we offer flexible hours and a kid's space for children." "But I haven't even finished my degree yet," argued Julie, "and that gives you exactly the perspective we need. Someone who is living the process, not just theorizing about it." The proposal was tempting. The salary almost 3 times what she earned at the diner. But for Julie, the most important thing was the possibility of helping other women facing the same challenges. "I need a few days to organize my life. I have commitments at the diner and college." "All the time you need," replied Robert. "But there's one condition I didn't mention." Julie tensed. She knew it was too good to be true. "You need to promise me you'll complete your degree. The foundation will ensure you have the time and resources for it." His words seemed sincere, but Julie still wondered if there was some hidden interest behind that generosity. She was just an ordinary woman trying to survive. He was a powerful businessman, accustomed to getting what he wanted. "Why are you doing this?" she asked directly. Robert sighed, as if expecting this question. "Because someone did the same for me when I needed it most, and because I believe talents shouldn't be wasted for lack of opportunity." He paused. "That sandwich you gave me represented much more than food. It was a gesture of humanity when I was about to give up. Now I can give back." Something in the vulnerability of that explanation made Julie believe him. In the following weeks, her life changed dramatically. She left her job at the diner, organized her college schedule, and took on the project at the foundation. Lucas was delighted with the kid's space where he could stay while she worked. The repercussions of the video had diminished, but left positive marks. Several student mothers sought out the foundation after hearing about the story, and the project gained national visibility. One day, while Julie was organizing a weekend workshop, an unexpected visitor arrived at the foundation. Claudia Mercer, visibly uncomfortable, asked to speak with her. I came to apologize in person, said the influencer, unable to maintain eye contact with Julie. What I did was unforgivable and, well, I lost several contracts because of it. Julie observed the woman who had humiliated her so much. She felt strangely calm. The video was cruel, Claudia, not just to me but to my son. I know, replied Claudia, the arrogance completely absent from her voice. I have no justification. I can only say I learned a valuable lesson about empathy, and I wanted to know if, she hesitated, if I can contribute somehow to the project. I have a platform and would like to use it for something positive for the first time. Julie was surprised by the request. Part of her wanted to refuse immediately, but another part saw a greater opportunity. You can start by participating in our workshop on Saturday. We'll be discussing precisely about prejudice and social humiliation. Your perspective would be educational. When Claudia left, Robert, who had been observing the scene from a distance, approached. You have a huge heart, you know that, he commented. It's not about forgiveness, replied Julie. It's about turning something negative into something positive. If she really learned her lesson, she can help others not make the same mistake. That afternoon, while picking up Lucas from school, Julie found a man waiting by the gate. Her heart raced as she recognized Mark, Lucas's father, who had disappeared when he discovered her pregnancy. What are you doing here? She asked instinctively, placing herself between him and the school entrance. I came to see my son, replied Mark, with a confidence that irritated Julie. I heard about the video, the foundation, everything. You're doing well for yourself, huh? 6 years, Mark. 6 years without a message, without a penny of child support, without even asking if your son was alive or dead. I was young, I was scared. He tried to justify. So was I. I was 19. Julie's voice trembled with contained anger. But I took on my responsibility. Things have changed. I'm stable now. I want to be part of his life. Things have indeed changed. Now I'm stable, replied Julie, firmer than she had ever felt. If you want to see your son, we'll do it legally, with retroactive child support, supervised visits, and everything else you've avoided for the last 6 years. Before Mark could respond, Lucas came out of school, freezing when he saw the man he recognized from the few photos he had. Dad? He asked, confused. The moment was interrupted by Robert's arrival, who had come to pick up Julie and Lucas for a foundation commitment. Is everything okay here? He asked, feeling the tension in the air. Who are you? Asked Mark, sizing Robert up. A family friend, replied Robert calmly. Julie took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure in front of her son. Lucas, this is your biological father, Mark. He came to visit us. Lucas looked at the man with curiosity, but without the enthusiasm that Mark clearly expected. Hi, he said timidly, moving closer to Robert than to his own father. We'll talk about this later, Mark, said Julie. We have an appointment now. On the way to the foundation, the silence in the car was heavy until Lucas broke it. He doesn't seem as nice as you, he said to Robert, surprising the adults. Robert exchanged a quick glance with Julie in the rearview mirror. Everyone has good qualities, champ. Maybe you need to get to know him better, he responded diplomatically. But I already have you, insisted Lucas with the innocence of his 6 years. Those words hung in the air, creating a different tension. Julie and Robert had been maintaining a strictly professional relationship, despite the growing closeness. But Lucas's words made explicit something they both were trying to ignore. In the months that followed, Julie faced a legal battle with Mark, who suddenly demanded paternal rights. He had married the daughter of a local businessman and now boasted a stability he never offered Lucas. Robert stood by her side throughout the process, offering emotional and legal support. The foundation grew, as did Julie's project, which now served more than 100 student mothers. On a rainy afternoon while working late at the foundation, Julie finally asked what she had been keeping to herself for months. Robert, why have you never married? He seemed surprised by the direct question. I guess I never found someone who made me want to build a life together, he answered honestly. I was focused on building my path, then the company, then the foundation. And now? The question escaped before she could contain it. Their eyes met for a moment that seemed to extend. Now I'm starting to think that maybe I've been waiting for the right person, he answered with an unusual softness in his voice. That conversation opened a door they had both been leaving ajar. On weekends, Robert began spending more time with Julie and Lucas. They went to the park, to the movies, cooked together. A family routine that neither had planned, but that seemed as natural as breathing. On one of those afternoons, while Lucas played on the playground, Robert told her more about his past. "When you gave me that sandwich on the beach, I had just lost my mother. I was working day and night to pay off the hospital bills," he confessed. "That day I was thinking about giving up on everything." "And what made you continue?" asked Julie, moved. "Your gesture, the way you, even with so little, shared what you had. It made me think that if there were people like you in the world, it was worth continuing to fight." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The closeness between them grew, but Julie maintained a wall of protection. She had been disappointed too many times to easily give herself to a new relationship, no matter how special Robert seemed. The custody hearing for Lucas was approaching, and Julie was increasingly tense. Mark had hired an aggressive lawyer who tried to paint Julie as an opportunist who had only recently achieved stability. "Don't worry," Robert reassured her on the eve of the hearing. "We have all the documentation proving your effort all these years, the employment records, college, Lucas's teachers' testimonials." "What if it's not enough?" she asked, letting her vulnerability show. "What if he gets shared custody just because he has money now?" "That won't happen," affirmed Robert with conviction. On the morning of the hearing, Julie wore her best outfit, a blazer and dress pants she had bought especially for work at the Foundation. Though simple clothes, they were light years from the mended dress from graduation. In court, Mark appeared with his pregnant wife, in a clear attempt to show he now formed a structured family. During the session, Mark's lawyer was relentless, suggesting that Julie had only achieved stability recently thanks to her close relationship with Robert Nelson. "My client spent 6 years raising her son alone, working 2 jobs while studying," countered Julie's lawyer. "Mr. Anderson never contributed a penny to the minor's support, and now when Ms. Anderson finally achieves stability through her own merit, he appears claiming rights." The judge listened attentively, occasionally asking questions to both parties. When it was Lucas's turn to be heard privately, Julie felt her heart tighten. After almost an hour of deliberation, the judge returned with his decision. "Considering the history of paternal absence, I order supervised visitation every other week for a period of 6 months. After this period, we will reassess the possibility of shared custody depending on the father's behavior and the child's adaptation," he ruled. "As for child support, Mr. Anderson shall contribute 25% of his income with retroactive payment for the last 24 months. Julie let out a sigh of relief. It wasn't everything she had hoped for, but it was fair. As they left the courthouse, Mark caught up with them in the parking lot. "This isn't over," he threatened in a low voice. "On the contrary, Mark, this is just beginning," replied Julie, tired of being intimidated. "Be a good father during visits, and maybe, with time, we can establish a healthy relationship for Lucas." Robert, who was observing from a distance, approached. Only when Mark walked away. "You were amazing in there," he praised. "I just defended what's fair for my son." That night, they celebrated the victory with a simple dinner at Julie's apartment. Lucas was excited, not because of the court decision he barely understood, but because Robert had promised to teach him to play chess. While watching the two concentrating, on the improvised board, Julie felt a wave of affection she could no longer deny. More than gratitude, more than friendship. When Lucas finally went to bed, Robert helped Julie wash the dishes, a domestic scene that had become common between them. "I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us," she said while drying a plate. "I haven't done anything beyond what you deserve," he replied. "Actually, I should be thanking you." "Why?" "For showing me what really matters in life." He paused as if searching for the right words. "Julie, I need to tell you something. These months with you and Lucas, they've changed my life in a way I never thought possible." Julie's heart raced. She knew where that conversation could lead, and part of her wanted to run to protect herself. "Robert, no, please, let me finish," he asked gently. I know it might be early, that you have many battles still ahead, and that your priority will always be Lucas. But I want you to know that I've developed feelings for you, deep feelings, and that I'm willing to wait as long as necessary if there's any chance. Julie felt tears in her eyes. For years, she had grown accustomed to being strong, not showing weakness, not depending on anyone. But there, in that simple kitchen before a man who respected and valued her, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. I feel the same way, she confessed with a breaking voice, but I'm so afraid. Of getting hurt, of Lucas getting hurt? Robert came closer, drying a tear that ran down her face. We can take it slow, one day at a time. When their lips met, Julie felt as if a part of her that had been dormant finally awakened. A gentle, respectful kiss, loaded with silent promises. In the months that followed, their relationship blossomed discreetly. Robert respected her space and the need to always put Lucas first. The supervised visits with Mark occurred regularly, and to Julie's surprise, he really seemed to be trying to be a better father. The foundation project prospered, and Julie was about to graduate in English literature. Robert had insisted she reduce her workload in the final semester, allowing her to focus on her thesis. On a Sunday afternoon, while walking in Central Park, they ran into Claudia, who now worked as a volunteer at the foundation, guiding teenagers on responsible social media use. The transformation of the ex-influencer into someone more conscious was one of the unexpected fruits of that story. "You make a beautiful family," commented Claudia, watching Robert pushing Lucas on the swing. "We're still building that," replied Julie, unable to contain a smile. "You know, sometimes I think about how grateful I am for having been such an idiot at that graduation," confessed Claudia. "If it wasn't for that terrible video, none of this would have happened." Julie reflected on those words in the following days. How could something as painful as public humiliation have transformed into the catalyst for so many positive changes? Not just for her and Lucas, but for dozens of other mothers who now found support at the foundation. On the eve of her graduation, Julie was nervous, not for the ceremony itself, but for the meaning of that moment, the closing of a cycle that had begun with humiliation and ended with achievement. "What if I trip when I go to get my diploma?" she asked Robert as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. "Then I'll be there to catch you," he responded simply. Lucas ran into the room wearing a small suit that Robert had bought for the occasion. "Mom, look, I'm just like Uncle Rob," he exclaimed excitedly. "You look like a prince," replied Julie, adjusting her son's tie. When they arrived at the university, Julie felt a déjà vu. The same auditorium, the same nervousness, but now everything was different. She wasn't alone wearing mended clothes. She wore a new dress, chosen especially for that night, and was surrounded by people who loved her. While waiting her turn to receive her diploma, Julie spotted Mark seated a few rows behind. He had asked permission to come, wanting to show Lucas that he valued education. It was a small gesture, but significant. When they finally called her name, Julie Anderson, Bachelor of Arts in English Literature, she walked with firm steps to the stage. Upon receiving her diploma, her eyes met Robert's in the audience, who was applauding her, standing with Lucas sitting on his shoulders, shouting, "That's my mom." In that moment, Julie felt the circle closing. A year ago, in that same place, she had been humiliated for wearing an old dress. Today, she was celebrated for her perseverance. After the ceremony, during the small celebration they organized at home with close friends, Robert asked for a moment of attention. "I want to make a toast to the most incredible woman I've ever met," he began, raising his glass. "Julie, your strength and determination have not only transformed your own life, but also inspired dozens of other women. You've taught me more about courage and dignity than any book or experience. And for that," to everyone's surprise, especially Julie's, Robert placed his glass on the table and knelt, taking a small box from his pocket. "I wanted to ask for the honor of walking by your side for the rest of my life. Julie Anderson, would you marry me?" Silence took over the room. All eyes turned to Julie, who seemed frozen in time. Silent tears ran down her face as she looked at the simple but elegant ring. Before she could answer, Lucas intervened, running to Robert. "Say yes, Mom. Then Uncle Rob will live with us forever." The laughter broke the tension, and Julie finally found her voice. "Yes," she answered simply, letting Robert slide the ring onto her trembling finger. The applause of friends filled the room, and even Fiona, who had always been skeptical about men after her own negative experience, was discreetly wiping away tears. Later that night, when everyone had left and Lucas was sleeping exhausted, Julie and Robert sat on the small balcony of the apartment, contemplating the city lights. "I have something to show you," said Robert, taking his phone from his pocket. "I've kept this all these months, waiting for the right moment." He showed her an old, low-quality photo taken on a beach. It showed a younger Julie, with baby Lucas in her arms, extending a package to a young street vendor. The image was faded, clearly taken from a distance, but it was unmistakably them. "How do you have this?" asked Julie, shocked. "After that day, I asked a friend who was with me on the beach to take a picture of you. I wanted to remember the person who gave me hope when I needed it most," he explained. "I carried this photo with me for years, like a talisman, a reminder that there are good people in the world." Julie felt the tears return. The idea that her small act of kindness had meant so much to him was overwhelming. "I never imagined we would meet again," she said. "I always knew we would," replied Robert. "I didn't know how or when, but something told me our paths would cross again." 6 months later, in a simple ceremony at Lakeshore Beach, the same place where they had first met, Julie and Robert got married. Lucas, proud, carried the rings. Fiona was the maid of honor. And even Mark, who now maintained a cordial relationship with Julie, was present with his new family. The Educating Mothers project had expanded to 3 states, helping hundreds of women balance motherhood and studies. Julie, now the Foundation's executive director, was invited to speak at universities, sharing her story of overcoming. In his wedding speech, Robert surprised everyone with a revelation. "Many of you know our story, how we reconnected at that graduation, but what few know is that after that day on the beach when Julie offered me a sandwich, I promised myself that if I ever had the means, I would create a foundation to help people like her." He looked directly at his wife. The New Paths Foundation was born from that small act of kindness, so in a way Julie is the true founder. Robert's words deeply touched the guests, but especially Julie, who had never imagined the impact of her simple act of compassion. After the honeymoon, upon returning to the house they now shared, a comfortable but not ostentatious home as they both preferred, Julie found a package on the bed. Inside was a framed piece of fabric, her old mended dress, the one from graduation, that had provoked so much humiliation and, paradoxically, changed her life. With it, a handwritten note from Robert. "To always remember that the greatest love stories don't begin with expensive clothes or perfect settings, but with hearts willing to see beyond appearances. I love you today and always." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. 2 years later, life had found a harmonious rhythm. Lucas, now 9, divided his time between Julie and Robert's house and bi-weekly visits to Mark, who had surprisingly become a present father. The initial rivalry between Robert and Mark had transformed into mutual respect for the boys' well-being. The New Paths Foundation now had headquarters in 5 states, and Julie's project had become a national reference. She divided her time between managing the project and a master's degree in inclusive education, something she never imagined possible. On a spring afternoon, while organizing preparations for Lucas's birthday, Julie received an unexpected call from Claudia. "Julie, you won't believe it. Remember that documentary we were making about the project?" The ex-influencer's voice overflowed with excitement. "It was selected for an international film festival. The documentary, titled From Humiliation to Stars, told the story of 5 mothers served by the foundation, briefly including Julie's own story. It was a project that sought to raise awareness about the challenges faced by single mothers in America." "That's incredible, Claudia," replied Julie, genuinely happy about the news. "And there's more. An international NGO is interested in replicating the project model in other countries. They want to meet you." That news was confirmation that the hard work of the last few years was producing fruits far beyond what they had imagined. When Robert arrived home that night, he found Julie thoughtful on the balcony, watching the sunset. "Everything okay?" he asked, kissing her softly. "Just reflecting on how unpredictable life is," she replied. 3 years ago, I was being humiliated at a graduation because of a mended dress, and now our project is going to help women in other countries." Robert smiled, sitting beside her. "That's because you transformed humiliation into strength. Not everyone could do that." Julie thought about all the women she had met through the foundation, mothers who faced obstacles much greater than hers, and still persisted. That inspired her daily. "I have a surprise for you," said Robert, handing her an envelope. Inside were official documents, Lucas's adoption papers, with Robert's name as adoptive father. "Mark agreed?" asked Julie, surprised. "Yes, actually it was his idea. He said Lucas deserves to have 2 father figures officially, not just in practice. He maintains all rights as the biological father, but now you and I are legally a family." Julie hugged Robert tightly, feeling a gratitude that words couldn't express. Mark's generosity, something unthinkable a few years ago, showed how everyone had grown in that journey. A week later, during Lucas's birthday, the house was full. School friends, foundation colleagues, even some of the mothers served by the project who had developed a close relationship with the family. In a quiet moment, while the children played in the garden, Fiona approached Julie. "Who would have thought, huh?" commented her friend. "Remember when you told me you would never trust any man again after Mark?" Julie laughed, watching Robert, helping some children set up a tent. "Life has a funny way of proving us wrong. And to think it all started with that horrible video," continued Fiona. "Have you ever imagined if Claudia hadn't filmed you at that graduation?" The question made Julie reflect. It was strange to think that one of the most humiliating moments of her life had been, paradoxically, the catalyst for so many positive changes. "I think some things were destined to happen one way or another," she finally replied. "Robert and I had already met before, remember? Maybe our paths would have crossed again even without the video." "Maybe," agreed Fiona, "but I like to think that sometimes bad things happen to make way for good things." The birthday was a success, and before the end of the party, Julie surprised Lucas with a special announcement. "Son, remember how you always asked for a little brother or sister?" she asked, with Robert by her side. The boy's eyes widened with expectation. "You're going to give me one?" Julie and Robert exchanged knowing smiles. "In approximately 7 months," confirmed Robert, placing his hand on Julie's still imperceptible belly. Lucas's joy infected everyone, and soon the news of the pregnancy was circulating among the guests, bringing a new wave of celebration. Later that night, after everyone had left and Lucas finally fell asleep, exhausted from the day's emotions, Julie and Robert sat on the garden swing contemplating the starry sky. "Have you thought about names?" he asked, caressing her belly. "If it's a girl, I was thinking of Hope," replied Julie, "to always remember what brought us here." Robert smiled, approving the choice. "And if it's a boy?" "I was thinking of Gabriel," she said. "It means God's strength, and I think our story has a bit of that, something greater that guided us." The comfortable silence that followed was filled with plans, dreams, and the certainty that the challenges faced along the way had forged something precious, something that no mended dress or past humiliation could diminish. In the following weeks, Julie was invited to give a lecture at the same university where she had been humiliated 3 years earlier. The amphitheater was packed, students, professors, and many mothers with their children, inspired by the story that had already become nationally known. Upon taking the stage, Julie felt a chill in her stomach, recalling the last time she had been there, with her mended dress and young Lucas in her arms. But today was different. Today she was no longer the humiliated woman, but the keynote speaker. 3 years ago, I was sitting where you are, wearing a mended dress, holding my small son, being the target of judgmental looks, she began, her firm voice echoing through the silent auditorium. Today, I'm here to talk about how education and community support can change not just the life of a single mother, but entire generations. During her lecture, Julie shared not just her personal story, but also the impressive data from the project. More than 500 mothers served, a 78% college completion rate among participants, and dozens of new ventures started by these women in their communities. What we've learned is that the barriers for these women are rarely intellectual or capacity related. They are practical barriers. Who watches the children during class? How to pay for bus fare? Where to study when you share a room with 3 people, she explained. When we remove these practical obstacles, we see the true potential of these women flourish. At the end of the lecture, during the Q&A session, a young mother with a baby in her arms stood up. "How did you deal with the feeling of humiliation?" she asked with a trembling voice. "Sometimes I feel so judged at college for being a mother." Julie looked at the young woman with deep empathy. "Humiliation only has the power we give it," she replied. "I discovered that when you have clarity about your values and priorities, the judgments of others lose their strength. You are here studying with your baby, building a better future for both of you. That requires a courage that many of those who judge you will never have." At the end of the event, while Julie was signing some copies of the book she had published about the project, she noticed an elderly lady in line, waiting patiently. When it was finally her turn, the woman extended a small package instead of a book. "I don't know if you remember me," said the lady. "I'm Mrs. Martin. I was your son's teacher at the community school." Julie immediately stood up to hug her. How could she forget the principal who had so many times allowed Lucas to stay beyond hours when she needed to work overtime at the diner? "Of course I remember. What are you doing here?" "I came to see you, my dear." "Too proud to miss this," replied the elderly woman with teary eyes. "And I brought something I've kept all this time." Julie opened the package and found a folded notebook, paper yellowed by time. It was a note written by herself years ago and left on the school bulletin board. "Looking for weekend work to supplement income. Will do any honest job, have a son to raise and a dream to fulfill. Contact Julie Anderson." "I kept it because on the day you left this note, I told my colleague, 'This girl will go far. She has fire in her eyes,'" explained Mrs. Martin. "I wanted you to know that some people always believed in you, even when the path seemed impossible." Julie hugged the lady again, unable to contain her tears. That piece of paper represented a Julie from the past, desperate but determined, who could never have imagined where she would be today. That night, arriving home, Julie found Robert and Lucas in the yard planting a tree. "What are you doing?" she asked, curious. "Planting an apple tree for the baby," replied Lucas excitedly. "Uncle Rob said that when my little brother or sister is born, the tree will still be small. But when they grow up, there will be apples for everyone." Julie smiled at the simplicity and beauty of that gesture. Planting a tree for the future, to harvest fruits years later. Wasn't that exactly what she had done in her own life? Placing her hand on the freshly turned soil, Julie made a silent promise that her children would never know the taste of humiliation she had known, but that they would also learn the value of perseverance that had brought her here. When Lucas finally went to bed, Julie told Robert about the reunion with Mrs. Martin and showed him the old note. "I'll frame it next to the piece of the dress," he decided, "to always remember where we came from." "Sometimes I still find myself thinking," began Julie hesitantly, "what if you hadn't been at that graduation that day? What if you hadn't noticed me?" Robert reflected for a moment. "I believe that what's meant to be finds its way. Maybe it would have taken longer, maybe in other circumstances, but I'm sure we would have found each other again," he smiled. "After all, we had already met once at the beach, remember?" "And what if I hadn't offered that sandwich?" she continued, playing with the infinite possibilities of destiny. "But you did," replied Robert simply, "because it's who you are. A woman who, even with so little, always found something to share. That's why I fell in love with you, twice." Over the following months, Julie's belly grew, as did the impact of the project. A national television network produced a series of reports about educating mothers, bringing even more visibility to the cause. In the 7th month of pregnancy, during a meeting at the foundation, Julie received surprising news. The Department of Education wanted to implement a national version of the project, integrating it into public universities across the country. "They want you to lead the implementation, Jules," said Fiona, now the administrative coordinator of the foundation. "It's a huge recognition." Julie was silent, absorbing the meaning of that proposal. Her project, born from her own struggle, could now help thousands of mothers across America. When she shared the news with Robert that night, he didn't seem surprised. "It was just a matter of time until they recognized the value of what you created," he said with evident pride. "Will you accept?" "I don't know yet," she answered honestly. "It would mean more travel, more responsibilities, right when the baby is about to be born. And it would also mean more impact, more lives transformed," added Robert. "Whatever your decision, I'll be by your side. If you want to accept, we'll make it work. If you prefer to wait, that's fine too." The way Robert always supported her decisions without pressure or judgment was one of the greatest gifts of that relationship. So different from past experiences where her aspirations were seen as secondary or even selfish. 2 weeks before the expected delivery date, Julie received an unexpected call in the middle of the night. It was Claudia in tears. "Jules, I'm sorry to call at this hour, but I didn't know who else to turn to," sobbed the ex-influencer. "My father had an accident. I'm at the hospital and I need someone." Despite the hour and her condition, Julie didn't hesitate. She and Robert immediately went to the hospital, where they found Claudia devastated. Her father had suffered a stroke, and the prognosis wasn't good. During the tense hours that followed, as doctors came in and out of the emergency room, Julie held Claudia's hand, offering the silent comfort that only someone who has faced difficult moments can give. "Why are you being so nice to me after everything I did?" asked Claudia in a moment of vulnerability. "Because I know what it's like to be alone in times of crisis," replied Julie. "And because I believe people can change. You changed." The next morning, when Claudia's father's condition stabilized, Julie and Robert returned home. The experience had brought unexpected clarity to Julie. "I'm going to accept the national project," she announced during breakfast, "but with one condition: that we can implement emotional support centers at each location, not just for practical matters, but for women who are going through crises like Claudia yesterday." Robert smiled, recognizing how Julie's empathy always transformed difficult experiences into opportunities to help more people. "I think it's an excellent idea," he agreed, "and I'm sure the department will think so too." A week later, Hope was born. A healthy girl with Julie's eyes and Robert's smile. Lucas was enchanted with his little sister, assuming the role of big brother with surprising seriousness for his 9 years. At the hospital, while Julie was nursing the newborn, she received an unexpected visit, Mark and his wife bringing flowers and a gift for the baby. "I hope you don't mind our visit," said Mark, visibly nervous. "We wanted to congratulate you." Julie exchanged a quick look with Robert, who nodded slightly. "Of course I don't mind. Thank you for coming," she replied sincerely. That moment symbolized how much everyone had grown and matured. Mark, who had once abandoned a pregnant Julie, now showed respect and consideration. Robert, who could feel jealous, demonstrated security and generosity. And Julie, who had once felt so much resentment, now could see beyond the pains of the past. When the baby was 3 months old, Julie officially began work on the national project, taking Hope with her to meetings, a decision that impressed many department members, but which she insisted on maintaining. "If our project advocates that mothers can study and work without giving up motherhood, I need to set the example," she explained when questioned. The image of Julie presenting data and strategies with the baby in her arms became a symbol of the project, inspiring many mothers to believe it was possible to reconcile career and family. In one of these presentations, held precisely at the University of Michigan, where it all began, Julie ended her speech with a reflection that summarized her journey. 4 years ago on this same campus, I was humiliated for wearing a mended dress at a graduation. Today I return here not just as a professional, but as living proof that circumstances don't define destinies. Each student mother I see in this audience is not just a statistic. She is a potential revolution. And our job is to remove every obstacle so that revolution can flourish. The applause that followed was deafening. Among the audience, Robert held Hope, with Lucas beside him, watching his mother with admiration. Mrs. Martin, Fiona, and even Claudia, whose father had partially recovered, applauded with tears in their eyes. Coming down from the stage, Julie was surrounded by student mothers wanting to share their stories, ask for advice, or simply thank her. One of them, visibly nervous, approached with a folded dress in her arms. "Mrs. Julie, this was the only dress I had when I started college. I mended it so many times there's almost no original fabric left," she explained timidly. "After I joined your project, I managed to finish my degree, find a job, and buy new clothes. I'd like you to use it in the project exhibition to inspire other women." Julie accepted the dress, moved. It wasn't the first, nor would it be the last. A clothes line of memories had been created at the foundation headquarters, where mothers donated pieces that symbolized their struggles and victories. A visual testimony of transformation. When the exhibition was officially inaugurated months later, it featured more than 100 dresses, each with a story of overcoming. Julie's mended dress occupied the center, along with a panel that told her story from the humiliation at graduation to the creation of the national project. One afternoon, while Julie was showing the exhibition to a group of international visitors, an elegant lady approached, carefully observing the central dress. "Is this the one that started it all?" she asked in English with a strong French accent. "Yes," replied Julie, continuing in English with fluency acquired in recent years of international work. "It was the only one I had to wear to a friend's graduation." The woman, who introduced herself as the director of a European foundation, looked admiringly at Julie. "You know what impresses me most about your story? It's not that you overcame humiliation. It's that you transformed it into a movement that helps thousands of people. That is true social alchemy." Those words stayed with Julie. Social alchemy. The transformation of negative experiences into gold for the collective. On the 5th anniversary of the original project, a big celebration was organized at the Foundation's main headquarters. Mothers served by the program, partners, supporters, and even government representatives attended to celebrate the impressive results. More than 5,000 mothers benefited nationwide, a college completion rate 3 times higher than the national average for this group, and dozens of similar initiatives inspired by the original model. During the celebration, Lucas, now 11, surprised everyone by asking for the microphone. "I wanted to say that I'm very proud of my mom," he began, with a confidence that reminded Julie of Robert. "When I was little, I didn't understand why people looked strangely at our dress at graduation. Today, I understand that it wasn't the dress that mattered, but the woman inside it." The boy's sincere words moved those present. Hope, now almost 2, applauded animatedly without fully understanding what was happening, imitating the adults around her. At the end of the night, when only family and close friends remained, Julie found a moment to be alone in the Foundation's garden, contemplating the starry sky. Robert found her there, bringing a glass of champagne. "A toast to the woman in the cemented dress who changed the country," he proposed, handing her the glass. Julie smiled, accepting the toast. "Sometimes I still can't believe all this started with a humiliation," she reflected. "No," Robert gently corrected. "It started with a woman who refused to be defined by that humiliation. It started with courage." Embraced under the stars, Julie thought about all the turns life had taken. The mended dress that was now a symbol of transformation, the cruel video that had become a catalyst for positive changes, the humiliation that had paved the way for recognition, and especially the attentive gaze of a man who, in the midst of a graduation, had seen beyond appearances and recognized her true value. "You know what impresses me most about this whole story?" asked Robert, as if reading her thoughts. "What?" "That everything changed because that day I was watching. Really watching." Julie rested her head on his shoulder, feeling a deep gratitude for the destiny that had brought them together, not once but twice, for the humiliation that had transformed into purpose, for the mended dress that now inspired so many women to persist in their dreams. The next morning, while preparing breakfast for the family, Julie found a box on the table with a note from Robert. "For the next graduation, your master's ceremony, choose whatever you want to wear. Any outfit will look perfect on you. But I've kept this in case you want to make a statement. Inside the box was a new dress, elegant and simple, exactly the style she liked. But there was also, carefully folded beside it, the original mended dress, now clean and preserved. Julie smiled, already knowing which she would choose, because some scars deserve to be displayed with pride, not as a reminder of pain, but as testimony of healing. And as the family gathered for breakfast, with Lucas animatedly telling about his school project and Hope trying to eat by herself, Julie knew with certainty the real graduation hadn't been from the university, but from life. A life that had taught her that humiliations can be temporary, but dignity, when preserved, builds eternal legacies. End of story. So, dear listener, what did you think of Julie's incredible journey? Have you ever experienced a situation of humiliation that ended up turning into something positive? Leave your comment, share your story with us, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one.